Welcome, everybody. How's it going? Can you guys hear us all right? Everything's all right.
Kicking things off with a little bit of music.
Hi, Minnie. Minnie, that's a perfect name for a tiny house.
I love it.
Awesome, guys.
Confirmation that
you guys can
hear us and see us.
All that good stuff.
Haven't seen any comments come in. Lindsay.
I can hear you guys.
Cool. Hey, Lindsay.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. Well, yeah, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Solar 101 workshop. We're super excited for it. It's going to be a pretty in-depth. Obviously, it's still a 101 workshop, but pretty in-depth compared to the event workshop, the events and some of that sort of stuff. So We're excited about it. Lindsay's going to really take it away and hammer home some of the load calcs and a lot of that good stuff. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jason. We're at tinyhouse.com. And Lindsay, most of you guys know Lindsay.
Experience Tiny Homes and also representing Soul Solutions as well. Yep. And for anyone that can't see or hear, just pop out of the app and come back in. That seemed to have fixed many a times.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Refresh. There's a good one.
A lot of people checking in here, so give them a couple more minutes before we get started. But yeah, we'd love to hear. I think I saw a few up in the comments, but if anyone has a specific thing that they're looking forward to learning or would love to learn about, we'd love to see those in the comments.
Absolutely, you guys, love it. We're all in here.
How many people out there already have some sort of solar system that they're working with? Whether it's a battery system or if it's just solar and it's on the grid or anything like that. And then also, if you are solar, did any of you guys get any credits from the government or anything like that for your solar system? Love to hear about that. Doug is solar.
You are solar, Doug.
Right on.
Doug is at Tiny House in New Mexico.
Yeah, remember. I got to talk with Doug quite a bit. He finished up his tiny house. Took him, a couple of years, but then he finished up a couple of months back, and he's living in it. I think it was New Mexico or Arizona, somewhere.
Like New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
New Mexico, right there. So yeah, I'd love to know if your name doesn't already have where you're from. Let us know where you're coming in from because we're going to be talking a lot about insolation.
There we go.
Yeah.
Insolation means. It'd be great to know where you're coming in from. Obviously, Doug in Taos, New Mexico. We all know there's probably a lot more sun in Taos than there is in other places. And I will share a little bit more about all that. Cool. We got D from, let's see, I'm going to slow down that scroll. Okay. Start it with this. Okay. Buckley, Washington, Ramsey, awesome. Lawton, Oklahoma.
We got Emily.
Come from Australia. Good old
Fairbanks.
And Phyllis from Iowa. And yes, she says definitely need insulation. There's insulation and insolation. We'll talk about that. And we got Perth, Australia. All right, Emily. Fairbanks, Alaska. Mark's in Los Angeles.
Northern California. Yeah.
Love it.
Pennsylvania, Vancouver, Northern California. All right. I'm in Northern California. I'm in Ukiah, California. We got
You were asking if it has to be on a permanent home, and absolutely that's not a requirement. We've built many tiny homes with solar on them.
I think she might have been meaning the credits.
Oh, the credits.
The credits.
Credits?
It really depends on where you're at and some different things like that. But there's, where you're at kind of depends a lot of that. So
you can get credit for off-grid. I'd have to do a little more deep dive into that. I'm actually going to write, I got my notepad here because I'm going to learn things in this presentation just like you are. So credit for off-grid.
Cool. It looks like the people trickling in kind of slowed down here. So Lindsay, I think we're good to get started. We're going to be shutting off our camera and be supporting the comments. So everyone enjoy and get something to write down notes and looking forward to this.
Yeah, super excited, you guys.
Awesome. That is so great. Thank you, Jason and Zach. I'm super excited to be here. We're here for 4 days straight, right?
Yeah, another 4 days. Yep.
This is only 2 hours. It'll be like a cakewalk. It'll go by really quick, you guys. I do tend to walk fast. However, today I did a little meditation. I pulled a card called Connection.
Perfect.
I wanted to slow down my rapid, oftentimes I tend to say yes to things that are scheduled for like 30 minutes or 1 hour, and it's a lot to compress in that time frame.
Yeah.
So this just feels more expansive, and we'll be able to, go through the concepts around solar, especially around off-grid. We'll talk a lot about that, but I do want to point out there's a new cool thing where there's a link. It's called Let's Talk Solar. And if you click on it, you will be taken to the website that we're going to be using later on in the presentation. So that link is a new thing that Run the World is offering. It's like pinned at the top. So if you guys see that, you can open it. Go ahead and open it. And just to let everyone know, if you don't have a Google account, we will be using that later on. There is an Excel version. So if I start talking about opening up a Google Drive or whatever, and you don't have that, there is an Excel version, and that's what you'll see when you go to that page. So,
cool.
All right.
It sounds great. Take it away.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. I'm going to start sharing my screen and click in there. Okay, everyone, we get the infinity effect. Okay, I'm going to hit play. Now, one of the interesting things that I'm realizing with Keynote is that as soon as I hit play, I don't get to see anything else. So what I'm going to do is probably escape, pop out, check the comments, and come back in, okay? Just to let everybody know that. Oops, let's see here. Oh, okay, did it all the way out. Let's not do that far. Okay. Here we go. All right, Solarize My Tiny Home Masterclass. If someone was telling me that like 2 years ago I would be teaching this, I'd be like, what? But there's something to be said for having your own off-grid solar and living with it for 6 months and traveling at that same time. We traveled 6,000 miles and did that. And for the last year, I've worked with Soul Solutions, and that is the logo you see there next to Experience Tiny Homes, which is my company. I offer consulting and tiny home design as a package that also does a whole builder analysis, because I do not actually build the tiny home for people. We'll get more into my story in a little moment, but that is why you see those two logos there. I have my own company, but I also do marketing and sales with Soul Solutions, and I've known Chaz for many years, the owner of the company. But so we'll dive right in. This is Chaz, the off-grid expert. He's been doing solar and off-grid, and there's no way I could be here giving you this information without my friend Chaz, as well as Traverse. He's not pictured here. But the two of them, literally with Traverse, was like showing me parallel and series yesterday. We don't need to get that deep into that today, but those are just different ways that you put together your solar panels. But the nice part is people out there like Chaz know what they're talking about, have lived it, and designed it for years. So this is my mentor. And I'm Lindsay Wood, tiny home consultant and solar student. This is part of my give back of the things that I've learned and give back to everyone here. And we went tiny after, in 2017, my husband and I decided it was far too long living, renting, and paying so much rent that we decided to go tiny and be able to own something. How about you guys? I'm gonna escape out. Like, how many of you, what is your number one reason why you want to go tiny? In the chat. Tell me in the chat, what is one of your biggest reasons? Oh, someone said no link at the top. Well, I see Let's Talk Solar, so I'm not sure. And yes, it's being recorded. Awesome. So what is your number one reason? Escaping mortgage, as an approaching retirement, independence, you want to travel, freedom, autonomy, less stuff. Yeah, we found that there's like 4 main motivators: financial freedom, sustainability, simplicity, and also community, like wanting to be around people, pride of ownership. I love it. Okay, so we are definitely in the right zone here. And that's exactly, all those things we just talked about are exactly why we wanted to. But our most important one was home ownership. And all the money we were putting into rent was going to at least go back to us as equity. And this is myself and Chaz in the Richmond tiny house. Remember when we were all meeting at festivals? I'm super appreciative, of course, so anyone be at the Tiny House Conference last month. It was awesome, off the charts. How many of you showed up, there and now obviously are part of this here? This is the ongoing efforts of Zach and Jason of delivering awesome content in this space that has been basically deprived of our festivals. However, what I really loved is that there were 72 countries represented in the conference. And clearly, a conference in Colorado is not going to be able to attract that many people. So I think the world of online, while a lot of us are a little over Zoom, no, I'm just kidding. That's why we're on Run the World. You know what I mean? Like we want to be around people, but for safety reasons and all that other stuff, we got to do what we can do. And I love that we can use the power of the internet. I mean, if this happened 20 years ago, you guys, it would be different, right? Different things would be happening, but we have the connectivity. So in connecting with Chaz, that's really, I sat at the booth right next to him when he was talking about all kinds of things solar for tiny homes. And it really goes back to 2009. So a little circa 2009, there's Chaz. I'm the one behind the camera. That's Kent Griswold from Tiny House Blog, and then a wonderful couple that used one of the very first Soulman to power their small 120 square foot tiny home. And so in case anyone gets lost in the whole thing, I will be inviting you to join me on a 20-minute call, because the load calculation that we're going to be getting into does take some time. And any deeper questions, everyone's a little bit different and unique. So I'm just sort of sharing that with you now that, we'll be able to chat after this because everyone has their own specific needs. Okay, so the questions we're going to be answering today. And I'm hoping, because I've done this a few times now, this presentation, and if anyone of you were there during the Chaz and I, let me see, anyone there during Chaz and I during the conference? Anyone take a look at our presentation before? Because a lot of it will be similar. And what I am a big believer of, repetition is the mother of mastery. So, yes, I see yeses. I also see a no. So great. We're gonna go back over it, but this time we're gonna add in the load calculation. So we'll be cruising through this content, but most importantly, these are the questions that we're gonna be answering, so that hopefully you'll already see some of your questions that you have being answered in this. We're gonna talk about system costing. That's a big one on everyone's mind. They wanna know what it is that's going to work for them, obviously, and how much it's going to cost. Those two are intertwined. How many solar panels will I need? That's part of the design. And that's going to definitely lead from our load calculation. How many appliances can I run on my solar system? Also another part of solar design that comes off that load calculation. What are the components involved? That's a little bit deeper dive, not something you absolutely need to know if you're going to have someone else design it for you. But if you're going to be installing your own system or you're going to have someone else, it's good to know what kind of components are involved. That way you have some language to everything. And so what is the best way to wire my home to keep it safe? I'll share a story with you about that. Do I want solar built into my tiny home or have it separate? That is going to be a big conversation that we're going to dive into. Because I think I'm one of the early people in the tiny home world to even talk about integrated or separated. Will my system work year round? I already saw a question, what's going to happen in those winter time? We are in winter. What will happen during, winter time when the sun is low and the clouds are going on and the snow and rain and all that? And can I make my tiny home work on grid and off grid? So anything missing on that list, let me know. If anything is missing, because I did see someone already talked about cold weather. Cool. Deep dive into correct wiring. And that may be we'll do a deep dive as deep as I can bring it. Remember, I will always be able to lean on my buddy Chaz and Traverse once we get through this sort of first steps. Okay, brands, cheap brands, quality brands. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go onward. 4 questions you must ask yourself before you know if solar is the right thing for you. We're going to be talking about that. The 3 myths not explained by websites that you must know before choosing solar. We're going to do the deep dive into the on-grid versus off-grid, your amps, your volts, your watts, the components I just talked about. What are the wiring do's and don'ts? load calculation of a tiny home. That is something we were not able to do in that 1 hour presentation on the conference. So now you're going to have your own personalized, sheet for you to add things into. Location, location, location. It's all about where those panels are going. And then little case studies about off-grid solar systems. So what are your reasons for solarizing your tiny home? I know we already added into the chat, like, why did you want to go tiny? Why do you want to go solar? Like, what are your reasons? It could be, for pricing. It could be, I can't put my, I have an idea for a place to put it, but I really need to be off grid because there is no power there. Sustainability. Awesome, Melanie. That's great. I'm with you. Financial, less expense. We'll be talking about that, Phyllis. Super excited. I did my math. D, off grid. What I like to say, we have a hashtag at Soul Solutions. It's called Own Your Power. And there's a big benefit for that, right? Just like owning your own home, owning your own power, using the sun. Okay, right? Every day that sun is coming up, I hope. If that was to change, we'd be in trouble. But every day, what a awesome thing to be grateful for, that it warms our planet and keeps us going. Avoid propane. All right. Less expense. Okay. Sandy, we'll be talking about that in terms of propane. I'm not sure if we'll be able to meet that exactly, but the numbers that you put into your load calc will determine that. Okay. So back in. Big reasons, as we just talked, that we chose to go tiny. As I mentioned, own your own power. These are all the same reasons. Mobility was the one that, I think a lot of people, like that opportunity to being able to be mobile. Most tiny homeowners land somewhere for a long time and keep it somewhere, but to actually be able to move it and to move your power with it, how great is that? So the 4 questions you must know before knowing if solar is right for you. How much power do I need? Where will I purchase my solar system? Who will install my solar system? And how much am I budgeting for a solar system? Okay, so those are the 4 questions that you've got to answer. We'll be going into those. And before we do, let me just introduce a little bit. Couldn't be possible without introducing to you to Sierra, our tiny home. Now, some of you may be familiar with the hybrid where you buy a tiny home, but you buy it as a shell. We purchased a tiny home as a custom home from a builder that we met. Let's see, we had our epiphany in August 2017. By November 2017, we're at Tiny House Festival in Tiny Home Jamboree in Arlington, Texas. And then we met our builder there that weekend. And by January, we were in contract. By the next July, we were rescuing our tiny home. Rescuing, literally, the builder went bust. And so we literally collected this home. This is Utah, the Salt Flats, the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. We drove by it. We're like, we've got to go and pull the tiny home out there. But we did not intend to pick this up as a shell by any means. We really intended to have it be a custom home, but we went from custom to surprise DIY. And we had to learn a lot in the process. And it wouldn't be possible when we brought our home back to Ukiah, California, 2 hours north of San Francisco. Our buddy Chris with Soul Solutions was able to help us out because literally our solar panels were stashed inside the tiny home. You see the pile behind Chris? That was like our personal items. I really need to get a picture in here of like, when we said we would pick up our home and the solar panels would be installed, they didn't mean installed on the roof. They literally meant pushed inside. And the actual brain of the unit, the inverter and all the components, which weighs about 300 pounds, were also inside. That we had to get a forklift from a friend to come over and help us lift out. It was crazy. Not something I'd recommend for anyone. But without Chris's help, and Chris is an off-grid solar installer, super important to understand who's installing your system. But Chris had been installing off-grid systems in Mendocino County for more than a decade. So that's his buddies, putting together a jig to get the solar panels on the roof. Even tying himself down to our standing seam roof involved equipment. So super important things to note is what kind of builder is actually, aware of an off-grid, how to install, you name it. Because we were traveling, we chose to actually put our panels on the roof, but that doesn't mean they have to be on the roof. So this was under our gooseneck, and that was a wiring. We'll come back to that wiring picture when I talk about wiring. But all this was still to be installed. And that's my dad and my husband. They're putting our unit. I have it blanked out because I don't want anyone to buy this product. It's not something that I'd recommend because they recommend putting it inside your home in a closet. So jerry rigging it to make it work for us. We did it with the help of Chris, but it was not something that I would recommend, but that is our unit. So, and there's the solar panels on top. We have 6 230 watt panels on the top of our tiny home. And, it was great. For a moment, I actually thought, we'll just, go up there and put the panels on. Like our panels, mind you, were driving under earthquake and hurricane conditions for 6,000 miles. The last thing you want to do is sort of DIY attaching it to a roof when you've got hurricane kind of winds. So we were super grateful. And not only did our buddy Chris choose 6 attachments, I think they're called C4s, to each panel. We thought of having only 4, but he said, keep it safe, put in more. You always want to ensure, if you are going to put your panels on the roof. How many people think right now that they're going to put their panels on the roof? I just want to know, roof or ground? Just those are the 2 words, roof or ground. Okay, roof, ground. Cool. We got 1 and 1. Okay, great. Roof and ground. All right, cool. How many of you weren't even aware that you could put them on the ground? Both? Okay, cool. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. We chose the roof because we were going to travel. However, when we got home to an area where the sun was shining a different way in winter and all that, we were a little bummed that they were on the roof, but there they lie. They were installed. There's no getting them off without a lot more expense. So we chose to do that. And there's the tiny home in Texas, one of our 6,000 miles that we found ourselves in Texas. So it worked wonderfully. Our whole solar system worked great with that kind of panel and system and awareness of how to use your system. I mean, I have the stories of our power going out after we left our mini split on in Dallas, and the sun went down. And if the mini split is one of your biggest consumers of electrical. And so we weren't able to actually turn our home back on until like 10 o'clock the next morning. That probably happened for us, not once, not twice, probably more than like one hand, of how many times we oops, user error, we forgot, and went over time. Plus, our system did not warn us. Our system did not have kind of the bells and whistles that now systems absolutely should be able to if your system doesn't notify you on the phone what's going on with your system, come on. We are in the world of tech. It should be able to do that. But the one we had bought, or I should say the builder had bought for us, was the one iteration before they did that, right? Just another part of the wonderful story. Okay, so here, onto the 3 myths. How many of you believe everything I see on the internet is correct? Is that true or not true? Everything I see on the internet is correct. Ha ha, not, right? Anyone can make it sound great. They can make the numbers look good. Soul Solutions has its share of competitors that we scratch our head how can they do what they're saying they're going to do? We're talking this little size thing and the weight compared to what we do. It doesn't make, from a physics, a law of physics, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so anyone can do that. Let's see. No, I have to play. It's weird. Okay, myth number 2, all components are created equal. True or not true? All components are created equal. What you see on one company is what you're going to find to another. Not true. No. I do want to talk a little bit. I spent about 7 years working in the LED lighting industry. Actually, I worked with Chaz in, 2009. And we We're just getting into, he was doing his Soulman Classic little panel on wheels, and he exposed me to LED lighting, and I just got so excited. I did that world for like 7 years. And what I've learned, if you were to try to buy an LED driver, it's like a ballast for fluorescent fixtures that they find in offices. You could not find one made in the US right now. It is only made in China. So the thing that I learned from being in that industry is a lot of the US based companies would actually have people in China, because what oftentimes it's just a reality in sort of the Chinese made products. They can swap things out that are less expensive in terms of the internal componentry. On the outside, everything will look amazing, but internally, and so that's why a lot of the high-end quality companies that were also making products in China would have their people over in China to make sure that what they ordered actually got inside their componentry. Does that make sense, everyone? Have you ever heard that kind of thing, of that happening? So that's another part of this whole componentry, not being created equal from one company to another. So it's super important. Warranties, reviews, and like the quality that you hear, the long lasting warranty and reviews are probably your biggest way to actually see, if they're putting their mouth behind their product. And number 3, it's my favorite one. Every tiny home builder knows how to install solar, right? Anyone? True or not true? What do you think? What's the guess there? I'm not sure what GFL means, but yeah, I know it's sad, right? Nope. I got a nope. Okay, yeah. Not all builders know how to install solar. Why? Because voltage and amperage, and this is not your standard electrician even. Use licensed electricians. Absolutely. I totally 100% believe it. Guess what? There's actually solar electricians. There's another level. Most electricians that I know would just do normal household, okay? And we're going to show you guys the wiring issue that when my builder said we can build it, no problem. I actually really appreciate the builders are like, we don't know that. And I'm talking to a number of them because they know they don't know, okay? I really appreciate the ones that say, you're going to go with someone else. I'd be curious to know, Jason and Zach, did you guys install solar? I do have my builders here with us. Do you guys want to pop back out and talk a little bit about this? I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I think this is super important, you guys. This is where one of the other things that people wanted to hear about from the conference is how to avoid pitfalls. Oh, network is not stable. I hope you're still hearing me. Still hearing me? Still good? Jason, Zach, you guys want to come? There we go.
Is that solar? Something? I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing that. Let's see here. All right, is that better? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we're good.
There we go. Yeah, cool. Well, so you're wondering if we installed our own. So we actually, we did a lot of studying and a lot of learning. We actually had a couple of experts in different different components of it, whether it's from the wiring and all that sort of stuff. And we had multiple people kind of basically draw up the diagrams of how it all needs to go with the exact components. And so we did a handful of our own installs, but only after we were like really, really well educated on it. So we made sure that we weren't just gonna like mess around with it and try a couple things here and there, but we really dialed in the system and got it to where we could, not do it in our sleep, but we got it to where we knew exactly what we were doing and how we could make it happen. So
right, but it was invaluable that you got. And did that person come with all the solar background and off-grid and wiring and all that?
Yeah. In the very beginning, we had multiple solar engineers who actually were like, that was their trade, create all that stuff for us. So it wasn't just standard electricians, and we didn't have our standard electricians do it because they didn't actually know that much about solar. So
no, they can take from the inverter and into the house, right, and wiring in the house. I mean, all that stays the same, but don't expect just because your electrician does your electrical wiring in the house and wiring for solar panels with direct current going into inverters and wiring all those pieces together is a very different reality.
Yeah, it is. And definitely the same thing with all the components are not created equal. I mean, we've had fair share of multiple, like you'd buy, something from one company, something from another company, and sometimes they'd be white labeled and they'd be the exact same thing. But other times when you get a different product, a different part, you're like, wow, this is incredibly more, like it's a way better product. So there's a big variation there. So
awesome. Well, thank you for coming out, because I felt that was important, because, a lot of builders may say, mine did. Oh yeah, we install solar. I'll show you what they do.
Yeah.
Next.
Cool.
All right. Okay. So was that helpful, you guys? Let's give those guys some support, because being honest in this industry is so valuable. We are still such a new industry of tiny home people that the last thing we want is someone to get hurt. Okay. So yeah, detailed plans, lighting plans, electrician or engineer does the calcs, awesome, panel diagram. Okay, so onward. So pop quiz, what is the number one component that makes your solar system off-grid? What is the number one component that makes your system off-grid? There's a few of them. Battery, good job, Phyllis, you got it. That's right, because you want to be able to store power from the day and use it into the night. I know that sounds basic, but we had to make sure you guys were awake, all right? Solar 101, on-grid versus off-grid. We've had a long world in the on-grid, which really means grid intertie. You see the sea of homes in suburbia. Oftentimes what will happen is the companies will be able to look from Google Earth, see what your roof is like, and be able to design your solar system from their comfort of their desk. And then the company comes out, they install the panels, and they tie it into the grid. There is no inverter and batteries and charge controllers and all that kind of stuff. However, here we are in Northern California, where fires have ripped through the communities that I've been around. In fact, I lived with 2 months of smelling intense smoke. I know there's another person from Northern California here. Tough time to breathe this past summer. And now all the people with all the solar on the roofs, that when the power went down, so too did their power. And they became very aware of the fact that without a battery system, there is no running your solar. And in fact, if you want to do that to a home, you have to have what's called a master switch. You've got to be able to turn off the power. If you want to turn on like a generator and run your home now with a generator or a solar generator, you've got to be able to throw that master switch, because it actually is connected to the grid, and you can hurt things on down the road with the grid. So nowadays we've got the off-grid. Okay, we've got a lot more awareness, but it's really grown up, I think, here in the Northern California area. The Mendocino County, which has been home to a lot of marijuana growth, really were the ones that were far off into the woods and the hills and all that, and they needed power. And so this is largely where a lot of the off-grid movement was born. I'm sure there's other places all over the country and the world. However, it just happens to be, a great place to live, and a great place to get solar, and a great place to get a lot of education from people. This tiny home was featured in a reality TV show, and that is the Soulman Classic with the 3 panels on wheels. So we won't dive into I'm here as someone that is excited about solar. I love solar. I love, owning my own power. When it comes to deep solar engineering, I trust my buddy Chaz and Traverse, but really it breaks down to a classic thing that a lot of people have heard: amps times volt equals watts. Well, the amps are really the volume, the pressure, the volume coming through the circuit and the wire, right? The volts is related more like pressure, similar to the PSI of water. And then when you really get into designing a system, how much is consumed by X device? Like, for example, how much is consumed when I plug in my cell phone? I know my computer that I'm talking with right now is a 45 watt charge. That is just being plugged in, but watts over how much power over time is really where the design of your solar system comes in. So for example, you've got 1,000 watt appliance running for 1 hour, or 100 watt bulb running for 10 hours equals 1 kilowatt of energy. And how your system is built the amperage, the voltage it can handle is really key on what you're consuming. Okay, and so these are the 5 major components that go into a off-grid system. You've got your batteries, like Phyllis mentioned, and you've got your inverter. That is going to take direct current from the solar panels and transform it into alternating current. Could you do an entire tiny home on direct current appliances? Yes. In fact, the boating industry, I know Zach and Jason are very familiar with this world, as sailors they are. The boating industry, RV industry, a lot of units and appliances are running off of 12 volt. So very doable. However, if, I want to plug in my computer and the toaster I just bought at, or the refrigerator from Home Depot we bought, all of them come with that alternating current capability. And then you've got your charge controller. This is monitoring, making sure how much charge is coming in, making sure all the systems are going well. The user interface. This is usually the thing that's telling you where your batteries are low, how much solar is coming into your system. And if you're getting too low and maybe telling you alarms, a lot of those systems can give you notifications right to your phone, which is super great. And then, of course, there's the solar panels. A lot of people see the solar panels, right? It's the number one thing you see. And you can go right from solar panel to a device, but obviously you're only running it when the sun's out. I did that years ago. It was like a fun workshop. One point, you stand in front of it and the fan goes off, and then you let the sun shine on it and the fan goes on. However, what we're really about is storing energy for when we need it. So 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, sun's out, no problem. 12 o'clock midnight, sun's not out. We still want to charge up our phone overnight and work on the computer or watch TV or bake something in the oven, if that's electric, you name it. So those are all the reasons why having a system that is designed for what your needs are is so key. And so the big question is, how big does your off-grid solar system need to be? We are going to jump into that in a little moment. So we'll get into that. Yeah. This is our tiny home. We have a full-size fridge, a mini split, toaster oven, all the things you see there. We even have a water pump because we have on demand. We did all the boondocking, where you park anywhere and you can run all your systems. And then on propane, and I know someone said that they're not as interested in the propane. However, I will share this now. To run your life on everything on solar, it's challenging. That is the number one thing I think I've had like Chaz, just constantly repeat into my brain. Heating water, heating food, and heating air takes a lot of energy. Big kudos to the millions and millions of years of fossil fuels that they compressed and did their thing to create so much energy in such an easy, space, or in such a small space. It's not as easily achieved unless you're in areas where there's a lot of sun. But if you're in like Minnesota, deep winter, there's not much sun going on. No matter how many panels you have, it's very likely that you will have some kind of hybrid system. So I want to know right now from people, is hybrid something that you're thinking about? When I say hybrid, it could be propane. It could be a wood burning stove to heat your home in areas that are really cold. Let me know if hybrid, just say hybrid in the comments. Yes, cool. Ramsey's a yes. Mine's strictly 12 volt. Let's see. Hybrid with wood stove, propane refrigerator, hybrid. Yep. Okay. Yeah, considering, but great consideration, because when we get into the load calculations, based on, it's always about budget, right? But even, like I said, no matter how many panels you have, deep winter, it's a snowstorm, there's no sun. What do you do? And if you're relying on that to keep yourself warm or to cook your food or warm your water, it's going to be a tough winter, right? You want to definitely... Yeah, when it comes to wind, Betsy, I'd be fascinated. My brother is making me a little mini wind machine right now. I'm super excited for like our camper. We have a cab over camper on our truck. So that whole wind thing, I don't know enough about, but I love it. I'm going to learn more about it. I biked on a bike that generated energy this last weekend. So yeah. Okay, cool. So we're in the hybrid communication. I get it. Some people are like, I don't want any fossil. I hear you. I'm with you, and yet it was really great to keep being able to heat my water and food and air when we were in the winter environment. Okay, so here's the wiring conversation. I'm going to take a drink for this out of my cool, tiny first sticker from the first festival I ever attended. There we go. I set this all up with such, intensity because you guys, our builder, if you don't know about Romex, that's the yellow stuff that's popping out our roof. We literally still have that on our roof. I don't know what the builder was thinking. And I'm sure Zach and Jason are probably like, Romex is what's in the wall right now. Like if there's a plug behind me, there's like a Romex that going, from here to the light switch, and that's in the wall. That is not the kind of wiring that you use from a direct current solar panels, 6 of them running 230 watts down into the inverter, running through a wood frame, okay? What got changed by my friend Chris, thankfully, who is a solar contractor, not just an electrician. He has his journeyman electrician. He already passed it. Anyone going to become a solar electrician has already gone through journeyman level, okay? That is like you're getting into mastery. Then you play with solar, okay? So he put in this stuff called MC4 cable inside a 3/4 inch metal conduit inside our home. So the picture both pictures, you'll see the metal conduit. And there's the Romex, which is the yellow. Now that Romex is okay because that's just running to a light switch, but it gives you an idea that yellow cable is how we found our home. Breather, that can lead to fire. Here's the thing. I am so blessed that our builder did not finish our home. I know we went over $40,000 over budget. We took 8 months of our life to finish our home. OMG, right? It was a lot, but they could have closed up our walls and we would have never known that they would have put Romex. And if any of that Romex insulation, which is that yellow stuff, it's insulation around the wires inside, would have been nicked or damaged or just gotten too hot, could cause a fire. Okay. This is why you want to have, people knowing which components to put together and all that. That's great. That's super important. But knowing how to wire your system, our solar contractor took one look at what the builder had done to us or thought they were going to do and was just like his face was ashen. So I hope that has landed on you that, super important to have the builder knowing that they either hire solar contractors or solar engineers or have been trained by them or hand it off completely, which is totally possible. And those are some of the builders that we are working with. Okay. So anyone, I don't know, that was intense, you guys. Everyone okay? The wiring conversation? We're good? Thumbs up? Was that important to know about? Did that open your eyes to how important it is that your builder is doing the right things? Either you, right? How many DIYers here? Anyone DIY? Say DIY or custom builder. Me, DIY. Awesome. Hey, Leanna, how's it going? Yeah, so anyone doing solar, it's sort of like a lot of DIYers were like, yeah, I'm DIY, but I'm going to hire the electrician or I'm going to hire the plumber because we just know what we don't know. Unless you're already a plumber or already an electrician or a solar electrician, then yay. But most likely you don't have those skill set and you don't want to get yourself in trouble where it could hurt your home. Because I am pretty sure my insurance company would not pay out, much less, my home goes bye-bye. So, okay, here we go. On to funner and lighter stuff. Location. Where do my panels go? They can go on the ground and they can go on the roof. And really important to note that this is an integrated system. This will likely cost you more money straight off the bat because you're having someone come and install and wire everything inside. And this is actually a home built by Simplicity, Byron, over there in Colorado. Kudos to all of them. They just had a major crazy fire and they're okay and everyone's okay. You always feel affected by the people with the fires. So my buddy Chaz, this home came out to Santa Rosa, California, and the solar system was installed because Byron knows he does not know how to install solar, but his buddy Chaz knew, and he brought the home to them. They got that installed. And then I think he even went back out to Colorado to finish it. So these panels are on the ground. When you separate it, think about this home right here. We've got this gentleman with the Solman Flex Power Box, and his home is angled in such a way that if the panels were on, look at how the light is coming and the shadow is shining. You can see the sun is coming obviously on the panels. Well, look at his roof. His roof is not, is a shed roof, right? His shed roof needed to be the other angle to attract the solar gain. But it may be that where you're going to park and how you get your tiny home in and out, it's just not going to work with the angle of the roof. So I hope that's landing for people. Like, is that like an aha moment? Give me one of those like claps or, smiley faces or a light bulb moment, whatever. Because that is something that I don't know if as many people really knew was available, is to not necessarily have to attach it to your roof, okay? Like for another example, there's the tiny home tucked in the beautiful, forest behind, and they may benefit from having shade in the summer. But the solar panels don't want any shade, and so they're going to be better placed, you can go up to about 100 feet out with these panels and line run before you start dropping efficiency. In this case, with the tiny home in the middle of the field, which is very unlikely that home is actually legal there. Who knows? Oftentimes, a lot of the homes are placed in gorgeous areas, but they're not necessarily legal or staying there. They're there for the photo op. But in this scenario, the sun would be perfect and the panels would be okay on the roof. It just depends on your portability and mobility, how often you're moving. It really depends on your specific scenario, okay? This is another scenario where we parked in an area where the shed roof, it was either sun on roof or sun on door. And we opted for sun on door, and we were going to plug into the grid. In fact, we ran our entire tiny home off of a 20 amp circuit, one plug, running 75 feet. And we were able to do it. We just couldn't run the toaster, the kettle, and the heater at the same time, right? We had to, address, and I don't really talk a lot about that, but, who here is really ready and willing? Like, who has actually already lived on solar? Anyone here already lived on solar? Anyone already live on solar? Jeffrey, yes. Leanna, no. How your system's designed and how you use it is really going to depend on how comfortable you are with, if you go with a much smaller system and you can't have things on at the same time, you've got to be able to, manage differently than a home that's just on the grid. I feel like the grid has made us lazy. Okay. We just turn on the lights and everything works. But with a solar system, like I mentioned, with our AC on and we totally forgot and our system didn't have the alarms, we ran out of power and we basically went to bed. And then we woke up and we needed about a couple hours of sun to hit the panels to really power up our batteries. And then we were able to come on. Yes, in the past. Yeah. So anyone that's lived on solar knows that there is some modification to your life with regards to solar panels. Winter and summer definitely play a big role. Okay. So this is the case for the hybrid, right? This is a classic. This is a smaller Solman Mini, just a couple panels, really more ideal for probably running your computer, your cell phone and all that. But in this case, you can also match it with a generator and think of it more like sipping the generator versus if you only ran your home on just a gas or a diesel generator, whenever you wanted to use anything and you didn't have any batteries, you'd have to have the generator on. However, the first time you add batteries, now you can extend it. So you could literally take the solar totally out of it and just do gas and all that. But if you're like me, we want to take care of the planet. We love, using the sun's power, the fact that it's up there all day, every day. And solar is so much more affordable, which I'll show you that. matching and pairing it with a generator to get you through those colder times, the times without the sun, that can really be, the extension that you need for your solar design. Okay. And so a lot of people are like, just make it easy for me. I don't know. Anyone out there? Yes, make it easy for me. Any yeses for make it easy? Yes, make it easy. Okay, awesome. Because as you probably have seen, I've been mentioning Soulman Classic, Soulman Flexbox. This is the stages that you can go through. Like if you're just wanting to power your computer and cell phone, this is our trip down to San Diego. We had the little mini lithium and the 100-watt panel. Okay, that's a price range of about $700 to $1,000. The Soulman Mini, now you're getting into more like a refrigerator, for maybe certain hours of the day, and then at night you might turn it off so you can power other things. That's really, you're going to have to manage your power more. Computer, cell phone, lights, you name it. When you get into the Soulman 3000, now is when you're really starting to be able to power your refrigerator, your lighting, your computers, your television. But that propane in the deep winter, sorry, not propane, the heating and the cooling, heating of water and food and air, that's really where the propane would come back into, or wood stove, you name it. And then, of course, a fixed system, really is something that is traveling with your tiny home and embedded. And that's going to also power your tiny home. You're just going to pay a little bit more for getting it installed. It also depends on where you're at, who's knowledgeable about how to do that. And so this is the Soulman 3000, and we've crafted it because we wanted it easier for people. We obviously, not everyone, as we saw, there are people all over the country. What's most ideal is people wanting to come and, get their system installed in Santa Rosa, California. That's great. But if you're from around the country, to get it all the way over here to install your system may not make a lot of financial sense. So we can send the box to you. Okay. This is something that I don't find in any other companies. There's companies that actually sell products that talk about numbers, but I'm telling you, something that I've seen out there is like half this size, and we were scratching our head, like, how can that even be? And we're going to be doing a little deeper dive into like really doing a product comparison, what things you need to know. But for now, just know that you can match this Soulman with flexible panels if they're wanting to be more portable, or actually rigid panels. And then it's got the user interface, the ability to plug into a 30 amp. So one of the things I talk to builders that are like, you know what? We want to offer solar, but we're not the ones going to do it. We just want to do what we do best and build a tiny home. And we say, yeah, do that. Build it, wire it for 30 amp. You can even do a 50 amp. You're going to have to step it down to use this machine. And then your clients can actually choose to add solar. So this is the kind of thing that you can add to the back of a tiny home, maybe on a platform, like right next to where the condenser is. If it can go on the front tongue, it is a certain amount of pounds. Like I think it's 250 pounds. So it does have some weight to it because of the lithium batteries. But, thank goodness the lithium batteries, they're lighter weight than the deep, the lead acid batteries, and they're going to last so much longer, and they're much more compact units. So you can actually pull something like this off, and you do not have to do as much maintenance to them, like adding water and that kind of thing. So this is something that we felt was really needed for the tiny home industry, to be able to just get into solar and not have to deal with, having to integrate it into your system. I just want to check in with everyone. How does that, land for everyone in terms of, let's see. So yeah, this is an important product to know about. I wish there was other products. If there were, let's talk about them. Happy to share. This is the Soulman 3000. It's earth-friendly, quality, portable, flexible, USA made, and has a 5-year warranty. So we actually don't make any of the components inside. We're pulling them all together to put them inside a box so that you can use it and be able to use it anywhere. And now let's just talk a little bit about numbers, okay? Because I'm sure a lot of you would be, interested to know. Our system was $17,000. Wasn't the Soulman. It was that other product that I don't want to mention. In 15 years, which is a good estimate of time, it'd be about $1,100 per year. Divided over 12 months, that's about $94 a month. Okay. I know right now in this house, we're paying far more in electricity than that. I'm curious to know what people are paying right now with the energy in their own home. If most people aren't really into the, yeah, I know, cost but breathtaking. I hear you, because what you're doing is you're paying for it all up front. Very different than every month on your electricity bill like we're used to, right? Now, there is financing programs, but $192 a month. So at $94 a month or $192 a month, we do the math, that's $100 in your pocket. Okay, but you're paying for your 15 years of energy up front. Now, here's where it really gets interesting. I know, sticker shock, right? Here's another one. The other house that you saw was $14,000, the one that had the integrated system. And this was $933 per year, and it was $78 per month. So now we're getting even lower than that. But here's what happens with energy, right? Let's just imagine let's just say your energy costs, you at your home costs $50, okay? Inflation every year is adding a percentage. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the energy costs don't go down. They go up. Unless you do something significant to, making your home more energy efficient. If you stay the same, it will go up because that's where it's going. So let's just say there was no inflation, about $9,000. That's about equivalent to what I just shared with you. But because you add in the inflation, that's the number of $21,000 over those 15 years. So I look at it like kind of like your own IRA or your own, CD. It's not it's not saving you tons and tons of money, but it's saving you enough to make it realistic, right? So what do you guys think about that? Did that help shift things a little bit? Because when you see the upfront price, if you went back and totaled up your last 15 years of your energy prices, do you think, you'd have a bit of a sticker shock? But we don't do that. We pay monthly. And they want us to pay monthly, right? That's why owning your own power is a bit challenging. And if you have the money, great. If you borrow the money, you need to redo the math. Absolutely. Yes, there will be an interest rate on that for sure. So I haven't done all of those number crunching, but I did want to share with everyone that this is the reality of the solar. I have had a number of people saying they have got about $5,000 and what they want to power does not equal the $5,000 unless they want to buy a product that's cheaper, but will that last 15 years? Does that come with a 5-year warranty? And yeah, I hear you guys, the solar part, there are financing programs. Yep. In your opinion, will prices continue to come down in terms of cost of solar? The awesome thing is prices have come down because of all the on-grid. And now because of, here's our biggest challenge. Those batteries, $1,000 each. There was 4 of them. That's almost half the price of the unit. And the reason why, we're going to get a little deep dive on history here. When, the political powers that be, they did not keep focusing on battery research. So we are behind even though we've got the Teslas out there and all that stuff, we've not been at it for like 20 years, or we would be way further down the road. We're also not brand new and first, but lithium is still a new technology, just like LED lighting, right? I used to say, oh, energy efficient light bulbs, and everyone say, oh, those CFL, the curly ones. I'm like, no, didn't you know? Well, now, sure, a lot of people think about LED, but just like, lithium and lithium iron phosphates, relatively new. There's a number of different types of lithium in the market, but they have not been getting the research and the funding from the government level, like all the other things that we're used to, like all the subsidies for the fossil fuels. Okay. And it's just a fact. It's not like, that's not a political statement at all. That's just a reality. And now we're playing catch up. And when we do that, if those batteries were at $500 each, great. Well, the lead acid, totally possible. More weight, more room. They discharge down to 50%. If you discharge them more, your battery lifespan is going to cut in half with those lead acid. With lithium, you can discharge them down to 10%. That's why you can do so much in a home like you're used to with such a more compact space, but they cost what they cost. So let's see. With lead acid, it was important to not mix new batteries with old. Is the same for lithium? Great question. I'm going to write that down. Mixing new with old. I will say, because I've heard enough people call in the Soul Solutions office to like, I've got an old this and a new that, and it's difficult when you start mixing things that have different ages to them. So I would recommend no, because of, there's going to be a weak link in the system, right? And the most important thing, you need things to work on, off, right? And millions of people got affected with the fires. And the biggest thing they got affected was the rotating power shutdowns. I had a friend lose $1,000 of food. Imagine doing that every year. I mean, thank goodness this year we got a lot more, awareness, advance notice and all that, but still lots of people out without power, losing a lot of, business and produce if they're in that market. I know of one grocery store that had to throw away their entire produce because of 4 days without power. And that's not just for California. We've got floods in the Midwest, the deep blizzard in the East. I mean, we're always going to have, weather elements, and they're seeming to get far more intense. So what do we do to make sure we empower ourselves? So I think I've gotten through this part where we are going to be ready to dive in. Absolutely. You can bring your tiny home to us and we'll install it. But this is really more, we're going to dive into, the paneling and the pairing, something that you can absolutely do with the Soulman system. This is just some ideas of what you can do with these systems out there. This is the actual, where'd it go? Those are the rigid panels, and these are the eFlex. So this is kind of the max that you would do. There's very likely that, based on your load calculation, you won't need this as much, but this is really the pairing, either the rigid or the flexible that you would then find with your, with the Soulman 3000. And now it is load calculation worksheet time. We're going to dive into what are your devices, what are your wattages, how many you have of those, how long is the runtime, all that great stuff, okay? And where you're going to want to go is experiencetinyhomes.org/solar. I will put that link in the comment, or maybe anyone else can grab that in there. Of course, if you want to have more of a conversation, I'll put this link in for the 20-minute consult. Happy to dive a little bit deeper. If at the end of this conversation, you're like, I didn't really get all my questions answered, I can get Chaz on the phone, I can get Traverse on the phone, and we can also, but we definitely would want to make sure we have your load calc, because then that just tells us what you're looking at, and then here's my information to keep in touch. There we are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Experience Tiny Homes, and my email. And so now I want to go over to my website. Let's see, I want to answer any questions. Wondering what typical load for a full-size tiny house 4-watt inverter. Okay, 4-watt inverter. Client wondering what's typical load. I would definitely recommend, Sarah, what we're about to do with the load calc, because everyone wonders, what is it I need for my system? It starts with the load calculation. When do we learn what equipment to use and what to avoid? How to find the specific calculations? Okay, let's dive in. Operator solar system. All right, so load calculation. So if you're one of these people, if you already have a Google Drive, I'm going to go there. If you do not have Google and you need the Excel version, go here. Just going to open that up and show you guys. It'll obviously give you a chance to download. Okay. And then for the Googlers out there, I'm going to give you guys a step-by-step. I already copied it over here. I'm going to put that into the chat. Okay. We used a DIY mini split. So we, let's see, I'm wondering if this goes in. Oh, wow, that did not really, that didn't record quite like I thought it would. Let me try something. There's the link. I'm going to start with number 2 and go down. I was expecting to see it in a big block. I am not seeing that. Oh, maybe because it's Interesting. Maybe because there's a 1, 2, 3. Okay. Hold on, you guys. Let me do something really quick. Take off the ones. I think the step-by-step thing is throwing them off. Because I'm about to do what I'm going to share with you in the chat, but I don't think it's working. Okay, there we go. I love my spacing, but it's not quite there. So we're going to go to this file. Either you have it up in Excel or you have it in Google. And you're going to want to, basically, this is only to be copied. So you're going to click File, Make a Copy, and then you're going to change the name. And please, if you want to share it with us, love to go. That's actually how we'll be able to help you with the solar system and sizing. So what you would do is say Lindsay W solar calculation, because there'll be so many people that will send us stuff. I'd like to have your name and at least your last name initial. You can put your full name. Actually, I could do that. Lindsay Wood solar calculation. Okay. And then I'm going to hit OK. So I'm going to check on the chat for a second to make sure everyone's being able to follow along. Any issues? You're able to download Excel. Okay. All right. So now I'm in my own thing. You shouldn't be able to like type over this because this will, this is not editable, I don't think. Cool. A bunch of people have gotten in there to grab it. Yep. Copy link. Okay, cool. So just File, Make a Copy. And then, over here, File, Make a Copy, and then it should be able to go to whatever folder you want it to go to. And if you're working with an Excel, same thing. You just won't be, I won't be seeing you add to it. Or sorry, I won't be seeing anyone add to it because we're in my own. You're in your own folder. Okay, so adding date and emission, all that kind of stuff. You can do that later. Right now, what you want to do is go through and add the things that are right. But let me give you a little tour of this before you start doing that. There's the kitchen and essentials, heating and cooling, and general and office. Now, we've left some additional line items there. If for some reason you're like, I don't use the hot water kettle, don't delete the line, just delete the actual text. You might have something else that you add in there. If you end up having to add lines, you just have to copy and paste the formula. And I'm sure people are pretty skillful at it, but just keep it simple. If you don't have a crock pot, just delete it. You can always, it's easier to delete a row than add it, okay? It's not so hard to insert a row, but you do need to add the formula because at the very bottom, after we do all of this, so for example, let me undo that. My refrigerator, if you don't know what they are and you're like, I don't begin to know, you can go online and do all this work. Oops, I realized I did not change that. Oh, bummer. Okay. Everyone, go ahead. For a small refrigerator, it is actually 150 watts. And for a larger refrigerator, it's about 200. Okay. That was the only thing in there that was doing the wattage per day, but it throws off our system in there. If you do have freezers, I don't actually know what those are, so I'll have to go online and find out what those are. But so does that make sense from the refrigerator? Just checking the questions here. Okay. So then what we'll do is I'll end up putting in 200. Now I put a little note here, average runtime 10 hours a day. So there's one refrigerator and we're going to do 10. And now you'll see there's the 2000. And as we go down, this is the really important starting number is 2000. And then as you start adding, we're basically adding up the total watt hours per day. All right. So we're doing the watts of the device, how many we have, and how long we're running. Now, if you're like, I only run my kettle, it can get a little weird, like seasonally, do it the best you can. Well, another level, if we were to do a 20-minute call, would be a deeper dive seasonally, and that would be with someone like Chaz, because he can really get down into the micro of the seasonal, what your real usage is. But here are some minutes stated in hours, right? If you only use the hot water kettle for 10 minutes a day, it's 0.17. All right. Now, if we were in person, I'd be going like around the room and checking on people, seeing how they're doing. So you'll just have to like let me know in the comments if you have any questions. So please repeat about the fridge. All right, so I think I should just leave my share on. There we go. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to just sort of oops, excuse me. I'm going to just maneuver my screen so I can see everyone. Okay. Oh, no, that doesn't work. If I share my screen, it gets crazy. All right, we're going to go back to here. Now I can see. Okay, good. You can see my screen and I can see the comments. Great. All right. Don't we put in 24 hours a day for fridge? No, it doesn't usually run all the time. Average run time is 10 hours a day. That's the one key one. You know, toasters, once again, you go over here, typical wattage. What do we have? Toaster 800 for, you know, for kind of more of like a toaster, like the pop kind. And then the oven is higher. And then even larger oven, like we have an oven, larger oven, because that's what we chose to use instead of an actual oven. That's 1500 watts. And so you would go in there. I'll just build mine, you guys, as I go along with you. And really use these like minutes to hours calculation. What I'd recommend is erring on the side of more than less. Like I said, there's a little deeper dive, each one of you, to really get into a conversation. And then there's that seasonal thing, okay? Especially when we get down to this heating and cooling. For example, mini split, just jump over here. Where's my mini split? Here we go. We got 10,000, 12,000 BTU. Very common, I think, are the 12 to 12,000 BTU. You could have two of those, you name it. So, but you'll see, these are the big numbers. Oops. One of those. And if I was running it, just thinking of my air conditioning, you know, 5 hours a day, those start adding up big time. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. If anyone has any more questions, are people doing good? Thumbs up with just, you know, I see silence out there because you're probably all filling your stuff in. Cool. Thank you, Darren. If you have something that is not represented on the typical power load, then it's just a matter of going out online, looking at like something that's similar to it. If it's not a product that you've even purchased yet, but you know you want it, then you would put that back in there and the wattage in there. They should have the wattage on like specification. A kiln, yeah, that's big, right? A kiln. That's when I'd be talking about a hybrid generator there. Yeah. So it even comes down to like mini split AC. Notice I don't even say heater, right? Because that's going to use a lot of energy. Well, during the winter, sun's low. You don't get as many hours of the day. Actually, this is super important for me to take a look at real quick. I forgot it's on my website. Here is the USA solar insolation levels, okay? And just look for wherever you're at in the country. Here I am in California, near San Francisco. 5 hours year average, okay? And here's a visual of the peak sun hours in winter, because you're always going to have more sun in the summer. But the winter is the one that you really want. Any solar design is going to be designed, especially off-grid, to the winter sun. There's a new cool product out there where they have parking lot lights. The marriage of LED lighting, battery technology, and solar panels have now made it so that we can do more with, let's say you're developing a whole new area, a new road, and you don't want to put in all the wiring and all the cost that's coming for that. You can just put in these towers, but they're always designing it for the winter sun, not for summer sun, because they know the summer will be fine. But if they can design it where it will, it will always be on every night without fail through rain, storm, you name it, then that is a good quality system. And so this is something super important to think about. Where this comes in, based on your number here, your average, what you're going to do with that is down here in this box next to it. You're going to do an equal that divided by, in my case, 5. Okay? 1,600 watts is really what I need, or what I can generate from those 5 hours of day. Not probably the 6 or 7 I'd get in summer, but the 5 in winter. If you haven't selected your appliances yet, just, go with a general idea. Like, you want a refrigerator? Do you want a toaster? Do you want to and grab them all off of that, this here. If you don't know exactly how many light bulbs, literally the light bulbs are not the big deal, you guys. Okay, run through that calc again. Yes. Well, just really quickly about the light bulbs. Your home's not built yet. You're like, I don't know. Go with 10 light bulbs, because really, at the 60 watt equivalent, they're 8 watts. They're really not going to be the big user. The big users are those mini splits, because if you can do all your heating of water and cooking with propane, you've taken off a huge load from solar. It's the mini split that's traditionally running on electricity. In the winter, warming your home depends on where you're at. If you say you're in LA, maybe, but when we get down to this area, this will really determine whether or not you're ready for something that's more integrated and you need to bring in more, batteries and more panels, or if you need something that is separated. And a lot of it comes down to also budget, right? Looking at a drawer fridge, do you have an idea? Oh, that's a good question. So here's what I do. Refrigerator, drawer, my brother has one. Let's just see what we come up with. I will say there is a point, in the RV world, you can get things that are propane and electric. So that could be part of your system as well. Here, let's just do the Amazon thing. I don't know. Love it, hate it relationship. Okay. I said drawer fridge. They're just giving me drawers. Yeah, so you can see this is a little bit, what I would do is just go with the small one. Go with the small right here on the typical load. Go with the, just do 125 watts. And what you would do there is put in 125. You've got one of them, 10 hours. Okay. And then that calculation down below. So what we're doing is we're going to look on the insulation chart on the website, right? Find your space. It should be right below where you downloaded the sheet. And then you're going to find your average. Ramsey, he likes it. Yeah, you have to clean it. Definitely clean it. But that's that's just cleaning. They cost more, but they're, space costs. Those are all things with tiny home. If you don't want to pay a lot, go for the 18-inch wide dishwasher. But I realize that takes up, width-wise this way. And in tiny homes, I know that's valuable space. So we take this, let's just say we're in Jackson, the Minneapolis, Minnesota, 4.34, right? And that's during summer. What we're going to do is we're going to take and put in, whether you're in Excel, whatever, equal sign starts the formula. Highlight the box, that one right there, F47, or it could be whatever numbers for you if you deleted anything, divided by 4 point, I forgot what it was, 78. Let's just say that. And that's going to give us how many watts per hour we need to be generating. I can already tell you that with the Soulman, you want to be in the 1700 or less. So now let's just take this thing and start adding more, wattage to it. I've seen people get into the 23,000. And that's something that you're really going to have to think hard about your heating and cooling, because I already know if you're up that high, there's something that you have in here that is literally running off, that could be replaced by propane. Okay. No, why does your chart not, I found this really cool. Let me see. Los Angeles. They're more general, you guys, but Los Angeles, you're going to have even more sun. So just use 5. Because that was San Francisco. If I was, here, let's just look at, there's a few ways of doing it. Here's where you see 3.3, 4.5. Yeah, you're down there in the 4.5, 5.0 in LA, right there. It's the perfect time to fill out the sheet. Oh, you can plug in. Yeah, definitely, you guys lean heavily on the suggested typical power loads. They're in there for a reason, because a lot of people don't know, what's there, or don't know without going to every device and figuring out what's, great for you. So just use that, plug it in, and then plug in your time estimated. Once again, if this is your first pass, you guys, when you work with someone like Chaz or Traverse, we go in deeper because they've done this for 12 years. So here we go. Never have a dishwasher in my life. I know I wanted one. I really did, but I opted for storage space in the kitchen. I'm just looking back to the questions. All right, Leanna, you're going to do it later, right? And at any time, you're like, okay, I've got my answer at the very bottom, and it's more than 10,000. There's a little hint. If it's less than 10,000, you're looking good for something like a Soulman 3000. If it's more than 10,000 and there's nothing else that can scrape down or whatever, then you're probably looking at more of an integrated system. But this is just our first pass. Thank you, Jason and Zach, for rocking the comments. And feel free, you guys, if anyone wants to share, awesome. I live comfortably on under 1 kilowatt per day. Isn't it such a different world, you guys? So well, how many kilowatts do you live on? We don't do that math in this country. Most people don't, unless you are already off grid or have lived off grid. Okay, where I have a 46 terabyte just drive running, how much wattage? I have no idea. Let's see. Tickable power loads, office modem. Well, let's see, 46 terabyte disk. You're talking like a computer, Mark, right? Like drive running, like a separate. Yeah, okay. Well, actually, you know what? We had that in. There's the monitor. That's different. Printer, laptop, desktop. There you go. Probably a standard desktop. Gaming, obviously, I don't know. 46 terabyte. Yeah, Victron, there you go. So that is some of the components we use. That is the components we use, not for everything. They don't make everything. They only make the batteries. We use Battleborn batteries, Victron, everything that's got the best warranty, because we don't want anyone calling us and going, it's not working, right? Yeah, make and model for specific things like that. So Mark, you'd probably put in, I don't know, Dell. That just came to my mind, or 45 terabyte computer, and do a little deep dive. I'm just grabbing the first one. You may have your specific, everyone has their specific things that we have in their home for drives, rads. So that I'm just looking for, whatever it may be, computer, toaster, induction stove, you name it, product details. Okay. It could be a driver's manual. I'm looking for wattage here. You might have to, deep dive on that. USB ports. I don't see any wattage yet. Dimensions and weight. This is where I'm like, come on. So there's a little bit of digging to get the right wattage. If you don't do that, you guys don't make it too hard. Seriously, just you don't want to be like, it's 6 watts and it's 200, okay? But this is a really good, if you don't know, put it in now, and then you can always go and do a little bit more refining. But what's super important before we get to the end, what I'd love to do with everyone is find out what their bottom number is. Just put everything in, right? You don't want to start tweaking things now or editing and going, I don't know, should I dry my hair for only a minute instead of 5? I'm going to show you guys another, let's see. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and you guys keep cruising along. I'm going to find another example of someone I worked with yesterday. Thank you, Jason. Yeah. Don't make it too hard. The goal is to have a number at the end, like just a big number. And then you can go back and refine and figure out, like, is it really that much time? And, Chaz does this with like everyone we work with, because you've really got to know and then there's seasonal. Don't get yourself too tripped up like, well, I use that, the AC and the heater and, put in a general idea, but that probably will be something that will get addressed as to how, but I think it's a really important thing to just see based on your tiny home, how much energy you're going to use, how you're going to design your life for wood stove and generator and solar panel will come into the design part. And, in 2 hours, we're not going to design everyone's system. And I appreciate other people wanted to know more about wiring and the components and all of that. I'm happy to do that on an individual basis. Like I said, we provide that free assessment, but it's super awesome. One thing I want to protect Chaz and Traverse is not doing this stuff. This stuff is something that is like the homework you do before you talk to the people, that in an instant they can see, based on where you're at in the country, what, devices you're using, what kind of system you're going to either need to have separated or integrated, what kind of budget you're dealing with, all those things go into it. Okay, if this, then that is what's happening. All right, I'm going to find that cool one because I think you guys will like it. I'm just going to play a little light music for the, because I know it's taking people some time.
Story about a man. He came up with a plan for flooding. He showed it to his wife. And he said, now darling, why are you crying so? She whispered in his ear, I fear you won't.
Okay. Just trying out the music. Was that nice? Did you guys like that? Was that good? Just to kind of get us in a little, okay, cool. Thank you, Zach, for throwing in the Amazon. Yes. Yeah, you guys, thank you, Betsy. Best takeaway is the basics and the importance of doing this homework of the calculation before trying to move forward. Because no matter who you work with, of course, we'd love to work with you. They're going to need to know what you have, okay, in your system. If you're working with a builder that is, building your home and they are installing solar and they're doing it right, and you can ask them great questions like, are you going to do, especially if you're doing it to the roof and you've got a wood, frame, you want to make sure they're using conduit and MC4 cable and all that great stuff. Oh, thank you, Melanie. Canada chart. I was looking up for insulation charts. What I would do is recommend using, let's see. It's called Canada Insulation. Not insulation, it's insolation. I don't know. Here we go. Solar insulation in Canada. Okay, so how much can I get from the sun? Let me see. Here we go. I'm going to give you that link. There you go. Cool. Oh, right. For the typical loads, it's definitely another tab, whether it's Excel. I know in Pages, it's up top. In Google, it's down below, and so is Excel. Okay. And where are people at? Like, is there anyone done, halfway done, or like still like a quarter of the way with your devices? Wow. Doug, do you have a full-size fridge? Doug's sharing the projected power consumption of everything in my house. Actual daily consumption is 100 to 200 watts day, less than projections. Great. That's amazing. Oh, Dometic, yeah. So, efficiency, for every $1 into efficiency that you invest in, you save $3 in your solar system. So some people are like, oh my God, super cheap fridge that my mom just gave me from 20 years ago. Don't do it if you're going solar, right? Energy Star is largely what those numbers are that we're looking at. LED lighting, I had someone that we did a whole calculation, like, I really love, what was it? Halogen lights. I was like, oh my God. And he ran them for 5, 6, 7 hours a day, and he had like 12 of them. That's going to be an energy draw, so the more energy efficient that you can be with your devices, the better. Obviously, the more insulation, if you're in colder climates or even warmer climates, that you can put in your home is going to reduce how much heating or cooling you're going to do, right? Everything has its trade-offs, especially when it comes to making financial choices about your home. The biggest one with regards to solar is just, I think, a bit of the shock, that people see how much it is. However, you're buying 15 years of your energy. Could be 20. I'm just starting with 15 to be conservative. Can you talk a bit more about how to start on grid and move to off grid consideration? So, my big thing is, this is a good one. So, when thinking of building your tiny home, a lot of people are like, I'm going to do the tiny home. I've got the money for it, but I don't quite have the money for the solar. This will probably be a situation where either you leave a cabinet if you want to do integrated or separated. Those are all your like integrated, separated, because you may not have the financial right now to do the solar system, but you want to, but at least initially you're able to plug in grid. You can wire your system for up to 50 amp is what I'd recommend. You can do 30 amp. We never used more than 30 amp in all the RV parks that we were going to. Actually, that's a question. Jason and Zach, did you guys do 50 amp or 30 amp? Largely. I'd like to know that. Ours was put in for 50 because we had a steam room shower. someone messed up on the actual circuit of the steam room shower and only put a 30 amp in it. So you can only run it for like 2 or 3 minutes and then the circuit blows. But, girls got to hire a steam room shower. However, many places, if you don't have a land to park it and you don't own it, it's unlikely they're going to have like a 50 amp circuit. You might have more like a 20 amp circuit. And like I said, we ran our whole home on that. We just couldn't do heater, kettle, toaster at the same time. You got to be more aware of, the amount of pressure and water flowing through your system. But in terms of going on grid first, you can reduce your cost, get your home wired, and then do a system like a Solman 3000. Or if you wanted to have it integrated and, mounted, leave a portion of your design ready for that later. And one thing I also say is wire the home for solar. You saw the metal conduit running through, my 2x4, framing. That's not really a thing you want to do later. Okay. But you don't necessarily need, that wiring is the cheapest part. Okay. The panels, the battery, the charge controller, and the inverter, all those things are more expensive. So those are some of the ideas that you can work with your builder to design it for the future, right? But maybe not do all the system right now until you have a situation where you've done the tiny. Now you start saving up for your solar. Hopefully that helped. We typically did 30 amp with propane. Yep, classic. You guys, that is like most builders do the 30 amp with propane. Very synonymous with the RV parks. If going into an RV park, maybe somewhere you have to go initially, or moving onto someone's land, they're like, we don't have a 30 amp circuit. Think of like a dryer plug. That's your 30 amp circuit, okay? 20 amp is literally the plug right there, that's plugged into this computer and all that. We ran our entire home on a 20 amp circuit, running 75 feet long. So it's totally doable. You just have to watch what you're using. That conduit is far from the panel of the inverter, but normal wiring for that conduit. I don't quite understand it, Melanie. I'm almost close with it. Conduit is far from the panel. Normal wiring. Oh, normal wiring for your plugs and your light switch and all that are normal, like the Romex type of wiring that an electrician can do. But when it comes to wiring from your solar panel to your solar system to your, I call it the brain, the inverter and the batteries and all that, that if it's running through your home, you definitely want a conduit. Whether you're metal or wood, you always want conduit. How do microwaves compare with conventional ovens everywhere, energy-wise? Great question. Let's microwave energy versus conventional. Well, we see conventional. Let's conventional oven propane or conventional oven electric. Yeah, electric. Don't know the answer to that, so I'm just kind of looking. Microwave consumes lesser energy, 40% less than a cooking gas stove. But remember, it's still going to have a big pop of energy. Back to our loads in the kitchen, microwave is 1,000 watts. So it just depends on how much you're doing things for. So that's the answer to that. Microwaves will use less. Yep, stovetop is good, even for baking. Propane. Yeah, hopefully by now you guys have kind of gotten the okay, I think I'm going to cook with propane or heat my water with propane. Because with solar in a tiny home space and where you have to put your panels and the winter reality, and we were in Sebastopol in the winter and we already knew, we had I think good week or two, or you do a generator, and then that takes, it's like, you guys know Volt. I had a Volt car, and first 30 miles was all in electric, and the rest of the time you could run on fuel. So it was like this hybrid approach. A lot of hybrid cars are out there. Think of your home like that they're, most likely all through summer, your solar is going to be rocking. In fact, you can do your AC mini split with solar, oftentimes, because when it's hot out is usually when the sun's out. So it's a really good pairing. With winter, it's cold in the morning. The sun's not out yet. It just rained, all that kind of stuff. So that's where that can get really challenging with solar. And, oftentimes we hear the biggest calls that we get within Soul Solutions is the system's just not sized to what they need, right? So, okay, does anyone at this point have their total watts per day, or at least a point of where you're at? Total watts per day. While you look that up, I'm going ahead and share my screen again and show you one of our other clients that we're working with, because it's always great to see other people's. Let's see. So here's Terry. I should probably just delete that. Whoops. Sorry, Terry. Okay. That meant to do the whole thing. I'll just undo. So Terry lives in Lake County near me in Northern California. And they've got, refrigerator, toaster, food processor, ceiling fan, TV, internet, charging phone. Compost toilet fan. Don't forget that one. I don't know if I added that to the list. Pellet stove. They've got a little, like, every time the pellets kind of release. Computer, charging laptop, mini split. Notice my note over here, AC will likely work in summer. However, for winter, heat will require hybrid of solutions. This is how much lighting, printer, microwave, hair dryer, music, you name it. 19,000. If she wanted to go with a Soulman 3000, we've got to start probably working on that. Once I take away that mini split, look at that. Crazy. Totally doable. So it may be that that's there, but in summer, she'll be able to maybe pull off like a few hours. But the sun's a whole different reality. How many panels we decide to, provide to her, is going to be different. But I'm going to leave that back to her numbers. She is actually choosing to get an integrated system because they've built it where it's really not moving. So I hope that really kind of gives you guys like everything else except for that heating, everything else she's running, no problem. But when it comes to heating and cooling, or I should say more so heating, that's where it really throws the numbers above and beyond the Soulman 3000. And then you get into more of an integrated system type of thing. So stop sharing. Let's see. Any other numbers people have down at the bottom of there? 14, 812. All right, Sarah. That's pretty close. When you get into like 20,000, you're like, oh my gosh, where, Sarah, do you find is the most of your energy on that sheet? Like what I just shared. Doug, 850 watts a day, living it stealth. So Doug, I'm assuming you're heating your water and you're cooking with propane. What are you doing for your air heating? Like actually heating and mini split. Okay, mini split and tankless water. Wait a minute. Like, Doug, do you have no heater in your house for the air? RV furnace. Okay, yeah. So you're using some kind of propane for the heating of the air. Air, water, cooking. Okay, great. Love the Lunos, you guys. Love Lunos. Lunos is a heat recovery ventilation system, HRV, and it's amazing to move air through your space. Keep it healthy and clear. Lunos all the way. In fact, we've got to get Lunos as sponsors for the Tiny House Conference for sure. Okay. Cool, Sarah. So Sarah, I think, if you wanted to hop on, you guys, I'm going to give you the link to schedule a call. And, now that you've done the homework, right? Doesn't it feel good? Give yourself a big round of applause for doing the homework. If you haven't finished yet, keep working on it. Looking on the typical Lowe's, looking online at, products you may want to get. That's a good indicator. And then, when you want to really do like, okay, I've done the homework, I'm ready to go, you're going to go ahead on that same page that we've looked at when we did the Google sheet and all that. Down below is schedule my solar call. Okay. And you can schedule it for a time that works best for you. Actually, I did not block off Christmas next week, so I'm going to go do that. Make sure, I love talking to people all the time, but happy to do that, into the following week. And then we can really do a little deeper dive on what works for you if you're wanting to, do something separated. Now that you guys have seen this, have you, those that are feeling like integrated or separated, which one's your direction? Integrated, separated? Because we talked about panels on the ground or on the roof, but what would be your go-to system? Integrated or separated? And for those that are thinking about solar in the future, you could also integrate or separate, but back to that wiring. You want to maybe wire it while the walls are open, while your, designers in there and talking with you about all of that. All right, so not sure who's integrated or separated out there. Oh, wait, here we go. Are there going to be any tiny house conventions or gathering anytime soon? We are doing, so the Tiny House Conference, everyone loved, thousands of people, 72 countries, is going to be probably next March, and then also in fall. So think spring and fall for your online, and then hopefully, blessings to all of us and all of this stuff that we're dealing with, COVID, that there, maybe some festivals next, summer. Not sure, but that's the reality. So at least we'll be doing that. And then we're still talking about, these kind of, workshops, and there's a few more in line. So you guys are already in the right place, because you're learning where to find out about what's going on, these kind of presentations and workshops. Wire for solar, install later. Awesome. Wire for solar and install later. Thank you, Leanna. Integrated sounds like the way to go, but it's the money. Okay, understood. And, I'm working with Hearth Financing, and if people can get funding, I guess the question is, are some of you in the situation where like, I really need to pay for my tiny home first and figure that out first, and that I'll have to wait for solar? That is a very common reality. But if you want to integrate it, right, you want to definitely wire it accordingly. If you don't, get it wired for 30 amp, and you're going to plug an outside external solar generator like the Soulman is totally doable. Generators for running home or charging batteries. Cool. Kathleen, can do both. Generator only runs my table saw, my chop saw. Okay. In terms of reviewing this later, that would be a Jason, Zach. What are you guys going to do with this recording? Yes, you should be able to watch it later. Awesome. Okay, does anyone want to come out and, ask any questions that you have, share your takeaways for this experience? You can also, I think they can share screen. I don't know. Be interesting to see what people have. I know this is sort of like a one-way. In Zoom, I'd be like, get on out here. Let's go. So don't feel shy by hitting the manage the mic or grab the mic. Do you guys see grab the mic? Or something with the mic? Grab the mic. I manage the mic. You grab the mic. One of the next steps would be to get on a call individually. Another thing I could see, with everyone that's been in here on, solar design with Chaz or Traverse would be the next kind of workshop on this platform. And that, it'd be like the, the 101 in college, like this was your 101. He would do the 201. All right, now that we have everything, let's go deep dive into the seasonal and figure this out. Then we could talk about financing. Does that seem like that makes sense for people? Like, would you guys be interested in that? Kind of deep dive on seasonal. Okay, financing. Yes, cool. So then for everyone that's been in here, we would go on to do that. Because as you can see, you got to do some homework first to really find out what's available. And then they can just see it and know where to work on things. And then that can inform and help inform you how you're going to build your tiny home. Right? I think that's the biggest thing. We just need a little help with all the choices that we have to make. Whether you DIY or get your home fully custom built, there's a lot of choices to make with going tiny. I appreciate it because, we had to make them one with the builder and then again for ourselves. State rebates for off-grid. Okay, so that would be another good one to get back to you guys with. State rebates for off-grid. Hey, you guys, I'm trained by Soul Solutions, so I'm here to represent. I hope I've given you guys a good, focus on solar, and I'm happy to, support you guys. And if you choose with your builders to get a system, you can take the numbers that you've got in this homework and bring it forward to them. But I'm going to, recommend the product that I truly believe in and that I've work with for a while now. So there we go. How do you manage snow on solar panels? What would determine if they're on the ground instead of the roof? But one thing for sure is you're going to be able to, keep them clean, like Ramsey said. So if they're on the ground and you have a snowfall, you're able to keep them clean. Or you have a big, long, brush that reaches to them on the roof. Because even with dust, like during the time that we had all the fires, oh my God, I was thinking like, all that stuff does have an impact. You do need to keep the panels as clean because you're going to get the best energy from those panels, most efficiency. Yeah. So I'd love to hear some takeaways, you guys. Like, what did you get out of this? What is one thing that really worked for you? What was the value that was brought to you today that maybe you weren't aware of before? And then what is something that you'd like to, if the 201 is something like, give me a thumbs up, just say 201 in the comments. And we'll know that'll be an indicator like, hey, we want to do a deeper dive for those people that want more information about wiring and all that. Need to find a local solar electrician. Yes. Great idea. Looking at a fridge that is 402 kilowatts a year. Oh, 2 kilowatts a year, convert to watts per. You take the 402 kilowatt, kilowatt hour, convert watts per day. Do you know what cubic footage it is? It's so funny. I'm like, my predetermined load divided by 364. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, 402 divided by 364. I'm curious what that will be. 402 divided by 364. 1. And I got the wrong kilowatt hour. There's kilowatt and kilowatt hour. That's a great question. Good, you guys stumped me. 402 kilowatt hour a year. Convert to watts. The other way to do it, my simple way, is what kind of cubic feet, because we have the suggestions for a 16 cubic feet, it's 150. For a 20 cubic feet, it's about 200. And then you're going to want to do only 10 hours of that wattage amount. Reality check on investment, and really appreciated your honesty. Thank you, Betsy. Yeah, I do want people to know, we've got a unit, a Soulman Mini that is, 2,000 to 3,000, but it won't run all the things that a home will. I mean, think about, this is a great example. When you think about, doing a cost per square foot of a tiny home, it's crazier, more expensive than like a home. But you can do so much with it, right? You can move it. You can't move a 2,000 square foot home. But a 2,000 square foot home has a bedroom, right? Look at all the square footage in here. I'm in my parents' house because of COVID and all that. We're renting our home. We're going to move to Baja for a while. And most of the home does not have the expensive appliances in it. But in a tiny home, you've got your kitchen with your stove and your microwave and your refrigerator and your kettle and all that stuff. is the expensive part in a smaller space. So it drives up the cost per square foot. But all the things other than like a really big, like, what do you call it? Whole house heating system, which you wouldn't obviously have in a tiny home. The things you have in a regular home, the things we have in this home right now, which is a 1,900 square foot home, is the same things we have in our tiny home. It's just in a more compressed space. Vented hood, full-size fridge, but what we have in addition is a water pump. What we don't have is a whole house system, which we could never run on a solar, like that small size on our home. So does that make sense? Like what we're putting in our tiny home is oftentimes what we find in our homes in terms of appliances. That doesn't change. The heating does change a little bit. So, yay, 201, I like it. 12 cubic feet. So you'd be even less, Melanie. I would just go with 125 times 10 hours a day. And then, then we can get down into like really getting into the nitty gritty of, go into that product that you actually want and see what the actual wattage is. Right now, that's not going to throw things over. We want to look at the bigger things, big rocks is what I call it. Then we get down into the pebbles and the sand. And that is absolutely something that we can do with you guys. So we're wrapping up. Zach, Jason, thank you so much for the platform and being able to share what I'm still in training with, but I'm super happy to share the knowledge that I've achieved and for everyone to have the homework of the load calculation, because that right there is like your starter kit. You are like 10 times further than most people still wondering, I want solar. How much will it cost?
We're back.
Right. Woo.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Lindsay. You had so much good, valuable information in there. And that spreadsheet, the Google Sheet, or I guess the Excel as well, is that's priceless. That's amazing.
Yes. And if you want someone to really help you kind of massage it and figure it out more, happy to do that, you guys. Just make that schedule. It's free to do that. And then, of course, with more design, we do have design fees. And then, of course, the product's available.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and use this as a resource. We're happy to answer any questions you guys going forward. Let's pop this here.
And the Excel spreadsheet is right next to the one on the Google. It's the two pictures. One says Excel, one says Google. You can download the Excel.
Great. That sounds good. Yeah, and everyone, feel free. If you guys have any questions, Zach and I will be available over in the Tiny House community. Just put the link there. So hop on there. Let's dive in. We can start a discussion on there and answer your guys' questions, help you guys get set up.
Yeah, definitely. Doing solar is, somewhat of a big undertaking, but our biggest kind of takeaway, our biggest word of advice would basically be don't go into it with your eyes closed. Don't go into it blinded, Make sure you know everything there is to know about it and, really do your research. It'll pay off in the long run. And, at the end of the day, even if you aren't the one installing the system, you're going to have to be the one operating the system. And so you want to have a good understanding of that. So,
yes, absolutely. And, price, as Doug mentioned, is always an interesting range. So I'd love to find out, what you can do under $3,000. It really depends on what you're powering, The pricing that I showed you guys is really related to more of like full size, items in your home. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of do the hybrid system or different ways like that. So just because, maybe that upfront number is kind of high, don't be off-put by it too much. Obviously, if you can, do creative ways and get underneath what those, the bigger systems can actually handle, then that's great. And maybe if not, then you can either look into like hybrid or, financing or something like that on the products or whatever. So all around there.
Our cab over camper is a whole different thing. It runs on, our fridge runs on propane. So, it definitely, whereas the tiny home, everything's full tilt boogie.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Hey, awesome, you guys.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, guys. Jump over to community.tinyhouse.com if you guys have any questions, and we'll be there. We'll be there to answer more of your questions.
Yeah, we hope everybody enjoyed it, and shout out again to Lindsay for taking the time to educate everybody.
Awesome, you guys. And there's my email if anyone wants to ask any questions directly.
Cool. Perfect.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. See
Have
you
a
guys
great
later.
day. Bye, Zach.
Bye.